So, as Arctic Monkeys come to the end of their tour, it's now been a whole year since the car was released. And one might ask, how many more videos could I possibly make about the car? Well, as many as I like, but this is probably the last one, so don't worry about it. Arctic Monkeys returned with the love of everyone, but the car's release and certain aspects of their live shows did cause a bit of stir with fans, with shouts that their gigs were no longer interactive enough and they just kind of turned up, did the songs and left. As well as the car reflecting a few good tunes, but overall the album was met with opinions that it was simply a bit lackluster and didn't possess enough of the charm that Tranquility Base did to make up for the ground for the stylistic change-up. And a shining example of these issues was reflected in their Glastonbury headline performance, where a lot of people did complain that the band wasn't interactive enough with the crowd to make it feel like an actual momentous occasion of watching a headline act at Glastonbury, as well as complaints that they should have simply just played their good tunes, not their new stuff. As always, some people disagreed with these takes, and I kind of did for the most part. But personally, I still thought there was a little bit of truth in these criticisms here and there that seemed to have run consistent throughout Arctic Monkeys' tenure of the car. For example, when I saw them live in Manchester, they sounded absolutely outstanding live, and it's undeniable that they could still perform solid rock music. But that was about it, which might sound a bit strange in some ways. But the issue was, Alex Turner barely said 2 words the entire time, and it seems they ditched even the classic introduction of "Hello, we're the Arctic Monkeys from High Green, Sheffield," and replaced it with "Greetings." Yeah, it's not quite as iconic and doesn't really get you riled up for the rest of the gig, but they still sounded mega live and more than enough made up for it. However, one thing I did think was interesting was the slightly different demographic Arctic Monkeys is now picking up. When I watched their Glastonbury set, I was visiting my parents for the weekend, so we had it on in the background to watch together, as although they're not the biggest fans of Arctic Monkeys, they still do really like a few of their songs, as we all share our music tastes with one another, hence why they like Arctic Monkeys, and I love both Queen and the Bee Gees. But where some people didn't enjoy Arctic Monkeys performing their new stuff, my dad absolutely loved it, and now has a real affection for both Perfect Sense and Body Paint as tunes. So for those who aren't too big Arctic Monkeys fans, you can't deny that the car may finally be the album to pick up a lot of these people, where before it was mostly people who enjoyed either garage rock, slick rock, or maybe slightly harder grunge styles of rock, are now getting off the train, and other people are boarding on who enjoy this more quieter style of music, if you like. However, I still don't think changing your style denies you some form of showmanship, the exact way they did their previous Glastonbury performances. I mean, just think of the amount of memes we've got from the 2013 set. I think the car really settled the fact that Arctic Monkeys are very different now. It's not just an album phase like we thought Tranquility Base was, and that change will be attracting a different fan base of people such as my dad, who grew up listening to Queen and David Bowie, and is a fan of the more rock opera aspects that the car brought. And ultimately, I think that's where Arctic Monkeys should head next. And whilst I certainly don't want to hear another album like The Car, I'd love an album that reflects those more true rock opera styles when they perform Body Paint live, for example. And I think it's the ultimate compromise that features both this new style they want to take on and elements of classic rock that root them in their genre. Alex Turner and Matt Helder spoke on how they tried to make another AM album, but it just sounded like a gimmick. So they likely won't make another rock record that sounds like their older albums again. And I'd agree, it would likely sound a bit strange if they did that now. And maybe that's because they were looking in the wrong area of rock music. The band has clearly evolved their sound from that original slick, fast-paced rock. And from their interviews, it sounded like they did want to make another rock album, but ended up making The Car instead. So why not look up to the masterpieces of rock opera in the past? Maybe albums such as Pink Floyd's The Wall, David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, or pretty much any of Queen's discography, to refine the clear aim they can achieve for an album when they perform songs like Body Paint live, which, to be honest, is probably one of their best live songs now. And if you've seen them live, you'll recognise they clearly still have the hunger for it as well. I mean, personally, I'd love a giant epic sounding album from Arctic Monkeys, with long winding guitar tones and echoing drums over Alex Turner's new billowing vocal style. Take Sculptures of Anything Goes, for example. On the car as a digital track to listen to, it really doesn't work for me. But when it's translated live with those epic billowing drums and some long winding guitar notes and Alex Turner's vocal delivery, I think it sounds absolutely fantastic and out of this world. And I think maybe the band fearing sounding like a gimmick when attempting to make a rock album that sounds like their fast-paced garage rock era, or maybe when they're trying to emulate the slick rock tones of AM, they kind of accidentally made The Car and peeled things back too much. As I've previously said and pretty much stuck to the entire time, I still think The Car is an okay album, and there are some real highlights on there like Jet Skis on the Moat, Body Paint and Mirrorball, but I still find a lot of it not very engaging in the slightest, and ironically quite contradictory to Arctic Monkeys' aims. The album sounds a bit gimmicky to me at times. But what I do think is there are several signs of a real masterpiece in the works for a future album on there, just kind of waiting to be found and dug out through those rock opera style tracks. And well, I'm not longing for an album to sound like their debut or AM in the slightest at all. I wanted to hear a new different style of rock, where Alex reflects his vocal capabilities, and the band as a whole reflect their talents as musicians, and specifically rock musicians. A great example of this would be Sweet Dreams by the Last Shadow Puppets, where you have an epic cantering rock operatic bass track filled with drama, and Alex can really elongate and echo his vocal delivery. Now mix that with the agile beast drumming and some Jamie cookery, and we have a wonderful album coming along. So I think my main take after a year of the car is I'm happy Arctic Monkeys returned, and provided us with a reminder of how fantastic they are and they can sound live still. And whilst there might be some aspects that did feel off during this tenure, I think there's a lot to look at and feel optimistic about. I did feel like the band took a real break after Tranquility Base's release, and I do think there is a new specific style for the band just waiting to be dug out and found, from the few hinting diamonds that the car had to offer when played live. Overall, I can only hope that in the future Arctic Monkeys take a look at what they do incredibly well as a band now in their performances, and are able to translate that into a fantastic new record. And if there's a band that's likely to produce a masterpiece over the next few years, my money's certainly on Arctic Monkeys, as they're more than likely to do it than anyone else in my opinion. But as they say, it's always the hope that kills you. As always, feel free to like and subscribe if you're new here. And on that note, I think I'll say ta-ra for now, and I'll see you later.